We've been rocking since the Sandbox, man. Stop playing with my dog, Scuba Steve. He the man, got plans, bro, to give him what you need. Hot damn, from the court to the field, they elite. I'm saying why, yes, got the hot takes and loose, stay checking. Talking about all the highlights from alleys to interceptions, from tutties to dope receptions and fantasy week projections. And honestly think you gotta tune in to get the message. Let's go.
Since the Sandbox fans, a week to Christmas, it's only right we're talking ball, inviting the guys back. We got Pino back in the building. Kev's fresh out of basketball practice, probably is craving a meatball sub right now. But
he smells good, though, right out of the gym. I gotta say, he don't smell bad.
He ain't working up the sweat no more. Before we get to the NBA, I have to let you guys know that we're still counting up all of our toys. We just did our first drop-off to the Parish Street Community Center at 264 without making 2 pickups and a box full at the Pleasant Park Yacht Club. So thank you for everybody for coming out to the event on Saturday. It was a really great time. Got to see a little bit of YS performance with some Christmas songs,
Nice.
So we love that. Absolutely. Pino, we're going to get you at the next one.
I know, man. I was trying to keep up with it on social media.
Yeah, it's all good. It's tough to keep up, honestly. But we had the in-season tournament that just wrapped up. There were a lot of implications that I feel like affect the NBA today, the NBA of the future, and the legacy of basketball.
I mean, I loved it. I thought it was a huge success for them. The players took it seriously. I felt like they increased their competitiveness. I mean, watching November and early December NBA sometimes it's just kind of like
whatever.
You know, they're going through the motions. They're like, all right, we'll get there after Christmas. But these guys seemed like they really cared. I mean, the 500K is nice. Some of these guys could care less, but you could tell they were going hard for the guys at the end of the bench where that was a life-changing amount of money.
Yeah. And I think that kind of made the bench get more involved. You saw that be a lot more animated. Obviously specifically with the Pacers, as they played in the final part, but it definitely did. And just to add in there, I loved LeBron's comments that he made for some of those two-way players that weren't in. He was going to take care of them. That's a great dude right there.
Nice addition to the season. It made, like we said, early season games more competitive, and it was just I heard a lot more people talking about basketball in November than I ever have before. So people, the media paid attention, just casual NBA fans paid attention, even if it was just what's going on, somebody explained this to me. It drew some attention to the league.
Yeah, and I mean, I think when we even talk in betting implications, DraftKings came out with multiple posts saying, "Oh, we've never had a game before Christmas in the NBA be bet as many times as it did," or how many million people are on this leg or riding the Pacers for as long as they did and things like that. So I thought that was really cool. I want to know what you guys liked and disliked about it. Obviously, the fan engagement and the interest, but looking at this, maybe I know it's tough through a player's lens because none of us have played in the NBA, but just kind of, the pros and cons that can really impact, their season. And Kev, coming to you first, do you feel like maybe players could have thought that they were taking this too competitive and that's kind of a con to it all? Because, I mean, it is still December basketball, and at the end of the season, the goal should still be an NBA Finals over that 500K.
Kind of like Pino said, especially for it being the first one they've ever run, I think it was great. Now, obviously, is there stuff, there was good things about it? Is there stuff they can add to it? Yes, but for the first one, it was great. But I do think, I love the whole just aspect of it, get them competing early. Even the little things up to them painting the courts different colors. That's just cool to see, especially
did
for
you like that?
I did, especially as kids. You know what I mean? A kid going to a game, that's cool to see.
Pino, you like that?
Yeah, I mean, I took my kid to one of the games at the Garden, one of the tournament games, and she was just all right, you could tell it's something special.
Yeah.
Because the way they changed the look of the place.
And specifically being a Celtics fan, I was against it at first because I was if I'm going to Garden, I want to see the parquet floor.
Yeah.
But then, as I started watching more and more games, I was all right, this is pretty cool. Competitive aspect is good. I think it's a good way to kind of see for, from an organization standpoint, kind of what you need to work on, if there's anything you need to do with the deadline, kind of things like that. It's kind of I don't want to say a preview to the finals because obviously everyone starts off in the in-season tournament and anyone can win it, whereas the finals you have to make the playoffs. But I think it's just a good way to see kind of, are you a championship caliber team? You know what I mean? And if you're not, you can go out and make moves in the offseason. The one thing I will say is I wish they started it maybe a few weeks later and brought it into kind of more to the middle of the season just because, you have a team Indiana, right, who is in the championship for the in-season tournament. Are they a top contender in the league? Probably not at the moment. Yeah, they're good for a young team, but teams like that are like, now teams are talking about them, and it's like, are they really going to be anything? You know what I mean? Where you have like
I will say that they have talent, but contending talent, I don't know. But like, I think that they could give a team a series in the playoffs, regardless of how it is.
Yeah.
Especially with the way like Holly Burton was playing. What I will say is I think that the courts gave me like a little bit of like the like lockdown like vibes like a little bit. I know that's kind of like weird to say, but either that or just
Bubble tournament.
That or like a Boise State when you see like their football field, you know what I mean? Definitely gave me that vibe. I always respect like the court and everything like that, but it was just really weird seeing like some of like the random colors.
It's probably hard to play on too, like being used to like a normal court and then like stepping on a purple court. It's probably so
right.
Gotta
some
adjust
of them
the
are
eyes.
tough to look at on TV, but you know, like you said, it's for the fans in the building. It's kind of cool.
Fun. Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to know, like, with the structure and the format, especially Kev, where you said, you know, maybe you would have liked to see it start a little bit later. I feel like I kind of wish that there was a little bit more like build up to it. Like I know that they talked about it for so long, but I feel like what was there, like 4 games, and then it was just like all right, semifinals.
Yeah.
I kind of wish that was like extended like a little bit longer, not so that it could have been like playoff vibes, because I do feel like it affected the gameplay of basketball. Right, I feel like there was a lot of scoring, not too much of like a defensive focus, but those defensive oriented teams that play well at that change their style of play to cater to the tournament schedule and structure. You know?
The other thing I didn't love about it either was that there was like regular games in between. Like you would play like, you know what I mean? Whereas, and you know, obviously feel free to disagree, but I feel like if you're going to do it, that's fine. But do it like for the next 5 games in a row. Just because it changes like teams that actually want to win the play-in tournament, then they have to like, if they want to sit anyone, they have to sit them like in another game. You know what I mean? And just, it was kind of weird that they did it like that. I think obviously that was for kind of what you said, to extend it a little bit, but I think, you know, going forward, you know, block off a 2-week gap, a 3-week gap in the end of November, December, and just play all the games at once. And they're still regular season games, you know what I mean? They still count towards your record, but at least that way that's kind of like what you said, how like they marketed it, and then it was kind of like, oh, I feel like that would help kind of like, now it's like, all right, it's in-season tournament time, boom, for the next 2 weeks. And then someone wins it, and then you continue on with the
even
season.
if there was like a 3 or 4 game break, like right around Thanksgiving, like give them like that Wednesday to Saturday and then start it off 5-game slate Sunday basketball and like go through right after that. But Pino, coming to you, would there be any change in like the structure of format going forward? And I know that there are some conversations, and one of the things that I'm going to add in here to just consider the future of the in-season tournament is that Adam Silver is rumored discussing making the team that won the in-season tournament a lock for a playoff spot. I didn't necessarily agree with that. I think what that would do is absolutely boost the value and importance of that, but I think that's more of a monetary accolade rather than like a team thing. And I know that could just be something that needed to be like changed in the structure of how we view, you know, the basketball seasons. But I just feel like there's so many great NBA players that wouldn't even be considered to achieve this accolade. I'm not saying that should mean that it shouldn't happen, but what we'll get into later on is like, oh, like how would like, are you going to sit here and value LeBron's career greater just because of an in-season tournament or not? We'll talk about that a little bit more in depth. But with those structures and the way that it was formatted, with that rumor of a add-in, how do you feel about that?
I think one of the biggest complaints about the structure from the players was the point differential being the tiebreaker, and the fact that they knew that, but not every team played at the same time on the final day was like the Celtics had a little bit of an advantage.
Right.
Yeah. They knew in that final game how much they had to win by. And the Magic, it was too late. They were home and they were done.
Yeah.
So there was nothing they could do to like win by more at that point. So the Celtics knew the lead they had to finish that game to move on.
Yeah.
I think a solution for that would be to play every group's final game all on the same day. Like we talked about
at the
that
same
Sunday
time,
after Thanksgiving. Everybody plays their last group game that day, so that there's no like, all right, we got to win by 23. We got to win by 17. Whatever it is. That's eliminated. I think the biggest win for the whole tournament was there was like no major injury.
I love that.
Because if there was a big injury, I think there would have been like major protests from the players. Like, look, this cost this guy his whole season. This
Yeah.
cost, whatever it is, just because they're playing around on a different court, a different like a playoff atmosphere when it's November and the guys aren't really warmed up
Yeah.
for the season.
For sure.
So I mean, as far as the playoff spot being guaranteed, I think you'd have to do it later in the season if that was the case. Because if I'm Indy and I get a playoff spot, I'm probably going to be
And
like
you fall
6,
apart
7
in the
seed
middle of the
anyway.
season, yeah.
What am I going to send my best guys out there for every night? If some team takes like a 15-point lead, all right, guys, sit down, take a rest.
Yeah.
We're already
and
got
then-
our playoff spot.
Right,
Yeah.
and then guys who bought tickets, like, what am I going to buy tickets for late season games when my playoff spot's locked up in December?
To watch Neesmith,
to watch
yeah.
like nobody.
Yeah.
So I think you'd have to like really weigh when it happens if you're going to give away a playoff spot. Like it would have to happen towards the end of the season for
I
that to
agree.
be worthwhile.
Yeah.
With that in-season tournament finals appearance, I mean, I don't even know if I want to say like finals, but that championship appearance, I feel like that game specifically, and I know the Lakers won, but I feel like it kind of meant more for the Pacers to be there. They got a lot of recognition. Like you saw Halliburton get a lot of respect. And something that I feel like also happened because of this, I don't want to say rivalries were kind of like established, but you saw a lot of like back and forth between players. Like you saw the Bucks and the Pacers specifically like build something that I feel like would last season long. You see the Suns and the Lakers, who are teams that play each other often, but now it's every single time these two teams play, like that home team is like taking advantage of that. And I feel like those are things that are good to get established early in the season. But like where we said, it being so early, that might not be relevant by the time February comes around All-Star break. Like for the case of injuries, for the case of competitiveness, whatever it may be. Do you feel like it might mean more to the Pacers or the Lakers? And I just feel like for the Lakers' legacy, like it just, I don't want to say it doesn't add anything to it, but it's just like, here you go. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this last time, like saying like it would have been really cool if a team that never won won this, because it's like the NCAA tournament. It can be a shock win. You need one win and you move on. Like, do we think the Pacers would have beat like anyone in the East in a 7-game series?
Probably not.
Probably not. But in one game, they could take advantage of the Celtics and the Bucks, and off you go. Yeah. So, like, it would have been really cool if the Pacers won, or even like the Pelicans on the West Side, because that's their only trophy. Like, they got the Lakers got like banners everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of like, okay, cool, we won this in tournament. And I'm actually glad they announced they're gonna hang a banner. Yeah. Because if they weren't gonna acknowledge it at all, it would kind of lose some meaning for these other teams that are chasing it. Like, if the Pacers won, they would have had a parade of banner, everything. Which would have been awesome. Because then one guy from the Pacers goes to another team and is like, we had this huge party when we won.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden it spreads around the league.
And I completely agree with you, and I feel like that's why I'm kind of, I'm for the whole if you win it, make the playoff thing, but I could also see it taking value away from some of the teams, just because if you're a team like the Celtics or the Lakers and at that point in the season, you're going to make the playoffs. Yeah, you're still going to play in the play-in tournament and compete, but you might not go as hard as you would if the playoff implication wasn't there, right? Like, if the play-in's in January, whenever they decide to have it, if there's a playoff implication, a lot of teams at least have an idea if they're going to be in the playoffs or not. Right now,
if you're a buyer or seller, at the trade deadline.
Exactly. So a team like the Celtics or a team like the Nuggets that just won it last year, they're going to sit and they're going to be like, you know what? Like, yeah, we want to win these games, but I'm not putting Jokic out there to get hurt if we're going to be in the playoffs. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. And same with the point differential. Like, the point differential, I understand there has to be a tiebreaker. I think at some level it takes the integrity out of the game, because if you're up 20 points with a minute left in the fourth and you need a win by 30,
D-Book was catching threes at 5 seconds left.
Exactly. Right. It kind of takes the integrity, even though everyone in the situation knows what the situation is, and I think
feel like players respect
it, but it just as a fan and as a as a young kid watching the game, you're gonna be like, oh my God, they're up 20 and they're still shooting threes and all this other stuff. I think
one of the big issues with that is nobody really took the point differential seriously until the last game or two.
Yeah.
So like if they had known that in game one, you go up 12
winning by 5,
and you kind of like
7.
dribble the ball out. Like maybe they would have tried to win by 15 or 18, and then it doesn't kind of matter.
Right, exactly.
Also, what I will say in a Vegas perspective, and we talk about this in the podcast, which is why I just want to bring it up. You know how many probably bets were hit or missed in that last 60 seconds of basketball?
Especially like overs and unders and stuff, just random like threes going in.
I know, me specifically, when I was in New York the weekend of Thanksgiving, when we went to the Giants-Pats game, the toilet bowl.
The Cutlet Bowl.
Yeah, legit. Right now it is. Even though they stand nothing on his cutlets, but or Pino's chicken sandwich, the chicken and waffles. I cashed a D book like over on the threes with just like that scenario right there. So I know how much that probably impacted the game going forward. But this is the big question, and Pino, like I feel like you're gonna get really passionate about this, and Kev, Lou, and I talked about this in a group chat and spent half hour or so discussing. Does the tournament play any consideration in a GOAT conversation, a legacy conversation, anything like that?
I mean, to me, it's kind of like some of these players who win NBA championships, they also have like that NCAA championship. Like it's a nice little added thing, but am I gonna like really weigh it in like the last possible thing? Probably not. But it's kind of cool that you show you can win in that one and done situation.
Yeah.
Because like in that final part of the tournament, everything's the equivalent to a Game 7, like the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
They did a pretty good job of marketing as that, like one and done. They were doing that, and like they had the ads with like guys in Vegas wheeling like safes through the casino and stuff. Can you win in that clutch moment? So yeah, like I think you talk about it in like a clutch factor situation. Like did LeBron come through in a final? Yeah, it was a one and done game, and he came through, and they played well, and they won. Yeah. But is it like the equivalent of Game 7 of the NBA Finals? No.
Yeah.
But it's a big game, and he came through.
Current NBA conversations, I feel like, especially with this just being like the first year, like that's not even like a talking point. I feel like for a comparison. Kev, feel free to chime in because, like I said, I already know how you feel about this. If you feel like LeBron's better than Jordan, you're not sitting here saying, oh, and all the more, LeBron won the in-season tournament, and Jordan never did that. You know what I mean? I feel like one's because that wasn't around for Jordan, and two, I feel like it takes away from that finals build-up in importance of it just being one game. And you can argue that could be more important because it's just one. And I think it's really cool that LeBron, of all people, was on the team that won that championship, especially for the future of the NBA. But I just want to know, like, is that something that you feel like maybe in 5 or 10 years is going to be a credible debate in a legacy conversation? Or
this is kind of playing, both sides of the fence here. But I honestly feel like it depends who, right? Like a guy like LeBron, it doesn't really matter. Especially like you said.
But AD, like I feel like that. Yeah,
I mean, especially like you said, if you're talking about guys like LeBron and Kobe and MJ, the best ever. Yeah, the first thing is it wasn't around back then, and I'm sure Jordan fans would argue that Jordan would probably win the play-in tournament, right? So, but I think, but I think for a guy like take example for like a Halliburton, for example, right? Like if he goes out and wins that. Then when, I'm not saying he's put in the conversation or all that, but at least,
he's respected
compared to other guys that haven't won anything, then like at least it gives him something. You know what I mean? Like LeBron, he's won so much. He has such a legacy that at this point it doesn't really matter for him. But for other guys on the Lakers, like, it might matter a little bit, Yep.
This could be like a more of like, as far as building legacy, this could be like one of those star-making kind of things.
Yeah, exactly.
Not necessarily something where you build on a legacy of somebody who's already in the conversation, but a guy like Halliburton.
Yeah.
All of a sudden now he's a nationwide star because he played.
No one even knew who Halliburton
games,
was, a month ago.
Absolutely, and I feel like no one's gonna come up to you and say, "Oh, Austin Reeves is that much better than DeMar DeRozan because he won an in-season tournament." You know what I mean? Like. That's Fugazi. Get out of here with that shit.
Right. But it could help building legacy for guys like that.
Okay. No, I just wanted to kind of hear like how you guys valued it because, like I said in that conversation with Kevin Lou, I was like, that LeBron thing isn't gonna equate to the same value of a finals appearance, and this kind of leads into what I wanted to just talk about briefly, and you brought it up already. Like I think giving a team some sort of recognition like the trophy besides the monetary like in your pocket definitely helps like build up the value of that tournament. But do you think like and you said you like that they're doing that, so Kev, like maybe you want to share before Pino does, should the banner be the same size as that finals thing and just instead of saying finals champion say in-season tournament? Like maybe you'd format it a little bit differently. Like I feel like I wouldn't be able to see a white banner with green around it saying, 2023 Celtics finals in-season tournament. I feel like, not that it would take away from the 17 banners that we already have, but just to have that hold space there at the same time, like that's just my whole thing with it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there should be a banner, right? Like college teams when they win, the ACC, they get a banner. Like it's kind of equivalent in that aspect. I don't think it should be the same size as the championship banners. I don't even think it should be the same colors. I think they should be.
Yeah,
You do.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or you do one of those ones where it's like in season tournament and it's like 2020, like you know what I mean? Like they do in high school. Yeah, like something like that. But
well,
don't.
I mean, worst case scenario, next season, whoever just won, they get to wear a jersey patch. For
Yeah,
the year.
something like that.
that.
Exactly.
I like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Like
in
the
season.
little trophy, like
Yeah.
it's a jersey patch. You get that for the year because you guys won it until someone else
Yeah.
did it, and they put it
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
I like that idea. We should propose that to Adam Silver.
Yeah, and then you'll sell a bunch of those jerseys with the
Jerseys,
jersey
too, yeah,
patch.
exactly,
Like, oh, I got
yeah.
the in-season tournament
Yeah.
edition one. You know?
Right? I know that's true. That's an interesting take. I love that.
I also think they should make custom jerseys for the in-season tournament.
Okay, like
I
city
feel-
edition.
Yeah,
jerseys?
like
They
if,
did win the
they.
city editions.
No, I know,
The
but I'm
home
saying
team
only
game.
like only the tournament. That's
Yeah.
the only time they wear.
And
it,
they have
you
to
know?
wear that,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
road or away. You have one road jersey,
Yeah,
one
like
away
the
jersey.
Celtics made the white one this year, right? But have like a white and a green one, and like they only wear those specific jerseys
You
during
guys
the
want
in-season
Nike to
tournament.
take all my money. My kid wants every possible.
Listen,
like
it's a
every-
business at the end of the day.
Every
As a
time
fan,
new
I would
jersey
love-
comes out,
like-
my kids. I need that one.
But as
too.
you said, like as a fan, I would love that. Like you have, a chance to get a jersey that they wear 5 games out of the year.
Yeah,
Like that's
it's cool.
sick,
It's
you know.
cool.
I feel like we really broke down that in-season tournament. Is there any other thoughts that you guys would like to, share or add with that before we move on in the episode?
I mean, they definitely took the idea from European soccer because every country has an in-season cup and then their league. And over there, it's definitely the league is still the most important thing. But there's like 3 or 4 teams who have a shot to win the league every year, and anybody can win the cup.
In-season
And that's
tournament.
kind of
Okay. Oh,
like
okay.
I kind of think that's really been awesome for like invigorating these like lesser fan bases.
Yeah.
And like now with Indy making the final, all these teams next year are gonna be like, we got a shot. We got to win
Yeah.
4 games, and our guys are going to Vegas, and we got a shot. So
Yeah.
I think it's just it's definitely a huge boost for like a New Orleans, an Indy, like any team that you go and you're like, yeah, we're probably not going to win the championship, but we got something.
Yeah.
We got something to play for, something to get excited about.
We can't talk about Christmas time without talking about basketball. We have a slate of 5 games on Christmas Day. Bucks versus Knicks, which I feel like is kind of like an underrated competitive game, especially in the East. I know Knicks will either play really tough or they can get blown out. But I feel like the Bucks are the same way this year. Like it depends on what Giannis you get. You get the Giannis that's running down the tunnel for a ball, or you get the Dame that's putting up 16 points in a game. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I feel like that just comes down to the way things were. Still getting accustomed to that move. But Bucks versus Knicks. Warriors versus Nuggets. Would love your thoughts on the Draymond topic after I break down all the games. Celtics versus Lakers. Love that that's on Christmas. I do wish that it was at a more respected time than 5 o'clock. 76ers versus Heat. I feel like those 2 games could have swapped a little bit, but 76ers and Heat should still be a very competitive game. And Mavs versus Suns. I feel like we haven't seen Luka take the stage to that extent that he usually does to this point. So I'm hoping that Christmas Day brings all that excitement. Maybe you want to talk about that Giannis scenario, chasing down the ball and the paces. First the rookie scoring.
The Giannis thing was so bush league, it really was.
You think that's on him, on Giannis?
I think it's on him. I also think it kind of carried over from the game because
Absolutely.
of everything that happened with the hard foul and everything. But I agree with the analysts. Yeah, it's cool. You scored 64 points. It was a game in season tournament game, right?
Yeah.
And you score 64 points. That's cool. Let the rookie get the game ball. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? That's at the end of the day. That was so bush league to me. Same with Pat Mahomes, but I'll leave it with basketball. I'll leave basketball right now.
Yeah, it came off kind of soft from Giannis, but
I think it was just the manner he did it. If he went up to him and was like, "Can I?" But the fact that he went up there, was literally about to fight the guy for a
Ran
game.
through the tunnel.
I'm like, buddy, first of all, you have an NBA championship. You've won enough game balls. Let it be. The analysts are right. He's probably gonna score 64 points again in a game at some point. At some point, yeah.
Come on, man. But the other thing too is that kind of situation. There's more than one game. There's 2 game balls. If one goes wrong, then they take it out. So if the Pacers took out the one for that kid, just take the other one.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And like you said, he's at the point in his career where he's got MVPs, he's got championships.
You want a
Can we
game
just-
ball?
Can we let this
literally.
kid who's going to be out of the league
Yeah,
in 2
literally.
years, keep his ball, let him be happy for 5 seconds?
Yeah.
But going back to that game with Bucks Knicks, that's going to be a high scoring.
Yeah,
mess,
I think so.
Especially the Knicks just had Jalen Brunson drop 50. And then you got Giannis dropping in the 60s. And they also just lost one of their best defensive players, Mitch Robinson, to some
Ankle or
injury.
something. I think
He's
once
gone
it
for
was
8-10 weeks or something.
Yeah.
So that's just going to be, the Bucks don't play defense right now.
Yeah.
So that's just going to be a high scoring mess. It should be fun to watch.
I hope you guys debate this. I'm not expecting that to be the case. Is Jalen Brunson a superstar in the NBA?
Oh god, that's a Luke question. I wish Luke was
I
there.
mean, he's
A superstar.
let him make an All-Star game first.
Yeah.
Like,
No,
just give him a second. Like,
And that's what I've been telling Lou, because Lou, I hope you watch this, because I'm talking to you personally.
Talking to you,
But
Lou.
like I say all the time, like anyone in the NBA, you know, anyone average or above average can put up numbers on a team that is going nowhere. Like, you know what I mean? And I understand, like, they have Julius Randle, they have RJ Barrett. So I understand why, like, guys like Brunson are getting so much hype, because those other two guys are the guys that you were expecting to put up 50 in a game. But like at the same time, take into like context that it is the New York Knicks. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Jeremy Lin had a 10-game streak where he was putting up 30 plus.
Yeah.
Like,
Linsanity.
can he do it for a whole season? Can he do it for, 2-3 seasons? Can he bring them to a playoffs? Can he make a playoff run? Like, all those things are things you need to do. Like, he was in Dallas and he did nothing. He was a glorified six man. You know what I mean? That's pretty much all he was. And I understand, yeah, now he has a better role and he's doing stuff with that role, but to label him a superstar in the NBA, I can't do it. I really can't. Not yet.
When we were little kids, we used to like collect the upper deck basketball cards. That was like the thing we go after, the upper deck cards. And they used to have this thing every year where they'd put out cards with the 50-point club, and it was guys who scored 50 points.
Yeah.
And we used to think like, oh my God, 50 points.
Yeah.
And then one year Tony Delk scored 50, and I was like,
That's what I'm saying.
oh, maybe 50 ain't that serious.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Like, because we used to go after like the Jordans and the Malones and then one year I open up a pack of cards and I got a Tony Delk 50-point club. I was like,
I'm never buying this pack again.
Great.
Yeah.
So like you said, a 50-point game can be a one-off thing, and there's always like those teams where like it's bums and there's like just some guy who's gonna be the guy scoring the points. I don't think the Knicks are necessarily in that situation. They're gonna be a playoff team. They're like a decent team. But yeah, I mean, is he a superstar? I mean, what's the criteria for superstar? Like,
because think about it, as good as he's playing, he's still a third option on, at best, if they exceed expectations, a 5 seed in the East. So like, I don't think anyone on the Knicks is a superstar, and if there was one, I would say it's probably Julius Randle at that.
Would you say giving him a max contract if he's a free agent?
No, I
think that sounds
exactly.
I'm 100. Like especially in a scenario where people are like, oh my God, like toss Jaylen Brown to the Wolves. Like I would take Jaylen Brown 11 out of 10 times.
All NBA, multi-time All-Star. Like,
over that dude, and like I'm obviously just trying to think of like other scenarios. I feel like because, like you said, like on the Knicks, being able to play that role, knowing that like we haven't seen the 30-point streak and the 3-pointers from Julius Randle like that, it is like where you see a game like that from a dude like Brunson, and I respect his game a lot. I feel like when it comes down to it, you guys mentioned like it's not something that's going to bring them like to the finals, you know. And it's great to win games. I'm sure the Clippers wish they had that right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But at the same time, at the end of the day, getting your team a top 4 seed, a great playoff berth, and out of the first round, like I feel like that's more important. And I just feel like that's a very debated scenario. Like I think Jalen Brunson's a very good player. I think it's more of like that all-star category, and I feel like in basketball, that's what it is. It's superstar, all-star, starter, you know what I mean? Like I would, and obviously you have like the exceptions of like generational talents, like Jokic, LeBron, like that type of conversation. That was the Bucks and Knicks. Love that. Warriors, Nuggets. So Nuggets, I feel like, are still kind of riding, the way that they have been. Jokic is still doing Jokic things. It's still early in the season, so like that buzz that we would get from like Michael Porter Jr. or anything like that hasn't fully came to life yet. But in this year, it just comes back to Draymond and like, is this dude actually like well? Like I feel like he in his scenario in his career in the NBA, I feel like he has a demeanor about him that he likes to kind of keep established, like that old school tough guy basketball. But I feel like he's also at a point where like he doesn't make a crazy impact on the court. Like he's still a solid player. He's not the worst player in the NBA by any means. But in a Warriors perspective, you're paying this dude still top dollar, right? Multi-million-dollar deals. And you never want to separate that core that brought you a dynasty, right? But I feel like there comes a point in time where it's like, okay, maybe he's great for the locker room. We don't even know that at this point, especially after the way Kerr's kind of comments came out. So that's why I kind of want you guys to elaborate on it. But I feel like that's a team that's given him a lot of money and a lot of different opportunities to be a different person while still kind of saying, all right, like, if you want to scrap with the Warriors, I'm that guy. But this dude, like, I feel like he fully tried to, like, elbow Nurkic to the temple, like, knock this dude out. And then he'll go, because he has the platform that he's a player in the NBA now that can sit there and talk behind a mic. I feel like he carries himself like, I'm more important, I'm more powerful than that guy, and that's why I can play this style of basketball.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys like throughout the NBA history who've had like that kind of reputation.
Ron Artest,
Rasheed Wallace, even Rodman before that. Like,
say the Morris brothers a little bit, just for like current day. But.
And I think those kind of things, like, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, you have that reputation, you go into a game, the refs are watching you, everybody's trying to like poke you to get you to do something stupid, and then because of that, all that like overreaction, any reaction you do. You make it 10 times worse on yourself, you know? And I think he's like one of those guys where he's got all those championships. He's got like the legacy of like being a winner. So again, he's in his own head. He's in his own head. He thinks he's like untouchable, like you said. He thinks he's like the toughest guy in the league, you know? So anytime somebody just pushes him a little bit, he blows up, you know? And yeah, like you're saying, is it getting to the point where it's detrimental to the team more than what he's providing you? He's still a good defender. He's still a good rebounder. He can't score.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. If I'm the Warriors, if I can find a way to replace him, I would probably try to do it. But at that point, do you blow up your whole locker room? Do you piss off the guys who won multiple championships with him and love having him around?
Do you think that it would impact that relationship at this point in their career? Because I feel like you see that love from, like, Klay and Curry to KD, but like still not there.
And if I'm Steph Curry, there's nobody I love more than Steve Kerr, because that's the guy who let you change the game by just rifling up as many threes as you want, and it turned into multiple championships for both of them. Yeah. And I bet Steve Kerr wishes he was that guy when he was playing with the Bulls and the Spurs in the 90s.
Absolutely.
You know, because he was great at shooting threes, and he's sitting there every day. He's watching Curry and Klay out there like, this could have been me. Like, I could bury threes. It's just you know, we were all driving to the basket and rebounding back then. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure Curry, Klay, and Kerr all have like an amazing relationship, and I think if he sat down with them and was like, guys, this is not working, we got to make something happen, I bet they would you know,
make a move.
Yeah, sure.
Do you like at this point, just like with the way it worked out, do you feel like Klay and Curry, I mean, obviously Curry's there till he's done, but do you feel like Klay is in that category, or do you feel like the role that he has now just might not be sustainable for a great future for the Warriors? I feel like you're kind of fighting a little bit of the past and the future at the same time. Like, you don't want to tarnish that relationship or the legacy, but at the same time, it's like, I feel like the brand of basketball the Warriors need to play, they do need to focus on making, I don't want to say better players, because Klay is still a really great player. If he was to go on a Knicks or anything like that, like, he would still be a main contributor. But I just feel like you can have Curry come off the ball the way they do with Chris Paul, and he can kind of fill that role, you know? Yeah.
I mean, I think the Draymond Green shit is, again, Bush League, honestly. Yeah. I think it's tough because, you know, I understand he wants to be that old school style of player. You know, I'm the tough guy, 90s, 80s basketball. At the same time, the rules were different back then, right? And most of the guys that were doing shit like he's doing, I don't want to say we're doing it within the realm of the rules, but, like, this guy's like blatantly just turning around and like elbowing people, like you see, like the famous clips you see of like the bad boy Pistons, right? Like dragging Michael Jordan down. Like Michael Jordan's going up for a shot and they're just giving him a hard foul. Like it is what it is. Does it suck? Yeah, but at least back then it was in the rules. Like going for a loose ball and not getting it, and then just turning around and throwing an elbow at someone, like that's not like respectable. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you're going up for a rebound and you box a guy out and throw him a hard elbow, like yeah, I respect that, but like, you're not even in the play and you're just elbowing a guy, like that's Bush League. And I honestly think it's for clout too, because I think, kind of like Pino said, he has all those rings, but he was never the guy. He was never anyone that people talked about. It was always Steph, it was always Klay, and then it was KD when KD got there. Yeah. So I think he's kind of like wanting to be that old school basketball, but half also like listen, like I'm gonna make people remember Draymond Green, whether it's for good or bad. I'm gonna make people remember me, and it's like, bro, like just go out there and play basketball. And if I'm Steph and Klay, like I'm at the point where I'd rather go out and get a big that's like talented more than tough, because at the end of the day, you're in you're in a finals, and this guy's already under the scope so much. One false move, like. Yeah. You might lose him for a game. You might lose him for 2 games. You might lose him for the series. And they haven't really gone out. They haven't really gone out and gotten a quality big guy because they always had that safety net of Draymond Green being there. Even though he wasn't the most talented, he could cover the other guys. He was tough. Like, he was that paint presence. If I'm the Warriors, I'm going out there and I'm getting a 6'10", 6'11", 7-footer that's talented.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that's what they need. They don't need the tough guy thing anymore. They need guys. They need skilled players.
And I know you have something to add, but you can add that after I ask this, and then you can answer this if you'd like. Should Draymond still be allowed to talk on TNT as a player in the season, acting the way he does?
I mean, if I'm TNT, I want him to.
Yeah.
Because think about it. If he's just averaging like 8 points and 8 rebounds right now, and keeping his head down, nobody cares.
Yeah.
You know, nobody's tuning into him talking.
Mm-hmm.
But now he's a huge controversial figure.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to tune in. If he's on TV next week talking, the people are going to be all over it. So, yeah, if I'm the broadcaster, I want part of it.
Mm-hmm.
NBA might be like, no, we're not doing that. But if I'm the broadcast partner, I'm like, look, I'm giving you guys $1 billion.
Views.
Like,
Yeah.
you're
Keep
putting
this
this guy on TV because I want the ratings. He's going to be, or have him show up in like Monday Night Raw and clothesline something.
literally.
Like, that'd be the greatest thing ever, you know?
Like they did that with
McAfee.
and they did it with, I think Shaq did it once.
Shaq
A couple
showed
other
up.
people did it too.
They
Yeah.
had Karl Malone and,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Dennis
yeah,
Rodman face each other the week of the NBA Finals on pay-per-view way back.
Classic.
That's hilarious.
But, you know, like, and it's wild to me, something you mentioned about, like, the players of, like, the 80s and 90s that he wants to be like. How wild is it that the guy who, like, changed the game to the modern style is on the same team as this guy who wants to be a throwback?
I know.
And the big thing back then is there was one of those guys on every team.
Yeah.
Right.
So, like, if you clothesline, like, you know, Kevin McHale comes on the court and clotheslines somebody,
Then, like,
Kurt Rambis is on the other end punching him.
Exactly,
Like, you know?
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
like, it's not like, you know, and there was a culture of that. Like, where you kind of had, like, so you couldn't go too far. You couldn't go over the line because there was another guy who was going to go over the line against you if you did.
Yeah.
So there's not really that culture in the NBA right now. It's guys who are, like, trying to protect themselves from injuries and make the game, you know, get better.
Yeah.
So it's tough to see, like, a guy kind of stuck in that when the league has passed him by.
Yeah, and I don't really, and again, I don't take it away from Draymond for wanting to be that kind of player. I think just the manner in which he's doing it is ridiculous. Yeah. Like, you can be a tough player in today's NBA and not get thrown out of 13 games.
Yeah,
like,
you can be tough and not dirty.
Yeah, exactly.
And I do feel like that, you know, a lot of what is kind of like manifested with it is it's a competitiveness with him. But I feel like he just gets to the point where it's like, all right, when you consume too much booze, you black out. Like, I feel like that's what happens on the court. Like, he just actually blacks out. And I feel like that's – and this is coming from somebody that knows Draymond Green. If you heard the way Steve Kerr talked about the Draymond scenario right after it happened and said, Draymond needs to get the help that he needs. Yeah. And not the Draymond Green that has a family and is a great teammate and a great guy in the locker room. But that guy that did that to Nurkic or all the other altercations that happened surrounding this dude, it's just like it's not the basketball that's played in 2023, 2024. And I feel like him continuing that style of play, I don't want to say he's going to affect his career because, I mean, the peak of his career, I would say, is over.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But this will be what people remember him for.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
You know, he's flushing down the toilet multiple championships.
Yeah. For sure, 100%.
Nuggets by 10 on Christmas.
It's that simple.
They're still efficient. They're still playing really efficient ball. They're not, you know, at their peak right now, but they're, you know, they got the best player in the world, and they're still playing efficient ball.
Absolutely. So, 5 o'clock game, we got the Celtics versus the Lakers. I obviously have some Celtics questions in here, so I'm going to dive in with those a little bit more. What is the biggest concern about our brand of basketball right now? And I know that we're playing good ball, but I do just feel like just to say that, oh, we need to keep it up is just like, I feel like that's not enough for a team that is looking to be a top 3 contender in the entire league.
And this has kind of been the issue the last few years, and I don't think it's anyone's fault, but I think still not having the identity of who that guy is going to be. You know what I mean? And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Because if you think about it, you know, in basketball and you know, if you need a game-winning shot, a lot of coaches, you know, like to ride the guy who's hot or things like that. But I think, you know, you look across the league at all the teams that, you know, have won championships in the past years, like the Nuggets know Jokic is the guy.
Yeah.
You know, the Lakers know LeBron is the guy.
Even the Bucks and Giannis.
The Bucks, Giannis. Same with Sixers and Embiid. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they know he's the guy. And I'm not saying that necessarily has to mean Jason Tatum has to take the final shot every time. I'm not saying that.
But the Celtics
I think
the Celtics, not the Jason Tatum and the Celtics.
Yeah, and yeah, that's great for the team and everything. But when you get into the playoffs and you're playing those teams that have an established guy. Whether Tatum's more talented than these guys or not, I'm not saying that. Tatum's one of the best players in the league, but I think just having that mental kind of like, all right, like he's the guy and we're going to go as he goes. I think they still haven't established yet. I think it's still kind of like, all right, we're going to play as a team. But they don't have anyone when playing as a team doesn't work that can just go out and, I don't want to say take over a game because Tatum can ability-wise, but I think mentality-wise, everyone kind of just checks out and then they're like, all right, like team basketball isn't working. Who's a go-to now? And that's when they start getting into the one-on-one, Jaylen Brown dribbling off his knees, Tatum doing it, like, you know what I mean? That's when they get into that, where it's like, all right, we're going to play team basketball. That doesn't work, get the ball in Jason's hands. You know what I mean? That doesn't work, then you defer to someone else. But they need someone that they can kind of pass the torch to when the torch needs to be passed. And I don't think they have anyone that anyone can 100% say, like, yeah, he's the guy. Like, yeah, you can argue Jason Tatum is the best player on the Celtics, but right now the guy is fucking Derek White, if you ask me. Like, that's the guy on the Celtics. You know what I'm saying?
White's been great early season.
Like,
and I think that's like helping them a lot, having guys like White, you know, really step up early season, dropping 30-point games like regularly. And one of the things you said about Tatum kind of sticks with me, like where he's very few guys in the league can do what he do as far as like 3-point shooting efficiency and the strength and speed to take it to the basket.
Yeah.
Like we have a lot of guys who can specialize in 3-point shooting. We have a lot of guys who can specialize in you know, a speed or power game. He's probably like the most balanced individual scorer in the league.
Yeah.
You know, as far as being able to take it to the basket. Like if you see him do some takes sometimes where it's like, that's unbelievable. That's
sometimes I'm like, how did he even fucking do that? Like, how did he get the shot off or something?
And sometimes he'll, you know, take a guy outside, cross him over a couple
back.
times and step back three. And it's like, there's not.
That's insane. Yeah.
There's very few guys on the planet who can do that at the level that he does it.
Yeah.
So,
both of those skills.
Yeah. And one of the good things I've noticed about him, and like, you know, not to get like stat geeky, but his total field goal percentage is 48.3 this year. His career is like 46. So it's a little ways up.
Yeah.
One of the biggest guys who's up from their career, Jaylen Brown's the same. He's 47.7 field goal percentage his career and this year. Porzingis is 52.4 from the field this year to a career 45.5.
Yeah,
that's a big
really
difference.
High. Yeah.
You know, that's a 7% jump. And I think the biggest thing about that is, like you talked about, he's on a team now where he doesn't have to be the guy or even think about being the guy.
He's been the biggest benefactor of all of that.
Right. So he's getting open looks. He's getting a better shot selection because other guys are focusing on someone else. So if that continues to happen and he continues to pile on the scoring, people will start to focus on him. Now you got guys like Brown and Tatum getting better looks and more, you know, open takes or just paths to the basket where no one's there. And I think you've been seeing that a lot with Brown lately because he's getting these uncontested drives to the basket. He's dunking on everybody.
Yeah.
You know, he's putting together these dunk highlight reels because he's got to beat one guy off the dribble. It's not like
he can do that.
all day. It's not like the points where, like you talked about, he had a ton of turnovers last year in the finals and the playoffs because there's two guys focusing on him.
Yeah.
Because there's only one other guy you got to watch, and it's Tatum. You didn't have to think about Marcus Smart scoring. You know, now you got Holiday out there who can score. You got White out there who can score. You got Porzingis out there who's burying points.
Even like Sam Hauser now, like he's consistent this year with the threes. You know,
he's getting these open looks.
Yeah.
Nobody's paying attention to him. So I think one of the big things that I really want them to like keep up, like you said about keeping stuff up. Right now they're third out of 30 teams in the league in defense. They're allowing 109.8 a game.
Well, they're probably averaging 118 plus.
They're averaging 119.
Okay.
So you're looking at a team that's averaging a 10-point win. You know, if they can keep it in that range, which is extremely difficult to do, I think they're in good shape. And I think the one, like they're scoring a ton. I think the one spot, it's crazy to say this because they're third in the league. I think they could improve a little bit on defense. You know, if you want to shave a point or two off, it's going to be on the defensive side, not necessarily on the offensive side. They're scoring at a great clip, you know, and they're playing defense at a great clip too. But I think maybe you drop it down to like 107 or something. Now you're number one in the league and you win the championship.
Yeah, and you guys feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Like this is, we all view, you know, the game of basketball a little bit differently, but I feel like the Celtics play much better as a team when they play with a decent lead. I feel like in those games that are competitive for 4 quarters, I don't want to say like those are the games that Tatum struggles, because I feel like he has, you know, those games where he'll drop like 16 in the 4th quarter, but then he'll also have those games where this dude's like 0 for 7 in the second half on 3-pointers, you know? And I think that goes a little bit back towards your point, but then it also makes me want to bring this into the conversation like a little bit, because I know we have shooters. Like, Drew Holiday has played so well for the Celtics, but do we think like that we've reached like I don't want to say our potential either, but do we think that he's fully how do I want to say it? Do we think he's fully, revealed himself to the role that he should be kind of with the Celtics? I don't think points wise it's been there, and I don't think like he's always a guy that his impact is going to jump off the page with points specifically. But I did think that he was going to average a tad bit more than Derek White, and I think Derek White's been a huge help to the Celtics. But I do just kind of feel like D. White's taken the assist, and I do think he's taken a little bit more of the points where I feel like Drew would have got a little bit more of that.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I don't want to say we haven't seen the best of him, and I've always felt this way about Drew Holiday. He's actually one of the only guys in the league I feel this way about. But even when he was with the Bucks, I feel like he's always one of those guys that does what he needs on any given night, and by that I mean
it's different.
Like a guy like Derek White, like his role on the Celtics is to come off the bench and be the scorer. Like Holiday's role isn't that. Like you could argue if he's better offensively or not. That's an argument you can have, but at the end of the day, that's not his role. His role is to be the court general. His role is to be, arguably the best perimeter defender on the team or in the league. You know what I mean? So he's gonna have the games where he might only have like 5-10 points, but guess what? There's going to be those nights where everyone else is slacking and he can put up 30, like even, you know what I mean? Like he's done it with the Bucks. He's had, the game-winning steals. I feel like he's just there, and then when it's his time to get the job done, he gets the job done. And that's why I feel like he's always going to have a job in the league, because he's not really like a one-trick pony. He's kind of just like, all right, what do you need me to do tonight? You need me to rebound and defend? I'll rebound and defend. Tonight you need me to have 10 assists? I'll have 10 assists. Tonight you need me to drop 20? I'll drop 20. Just let me know. Let me know what you need me to do.
I'd even argue that he's being like actively coached to do just that.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Like coaches are telling you.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like his established role is to be, because think about it. Think about who they brought him in for. They brought him in for Marcus Smart, and Marcus Smart offensively didn't have a big role. I think he thought his role was a lot bigger than it was, but you're bringing in that guy to replace him, and he's gonna get you a complimentary extra 6 to 8 a night than Marcus Smart would, but remember the role that you're filling. You know what I mean? And he's filling Marcus Smart's role, and he's doing everything that we wanted out of Marcus Smart without making the bonehead mistakes. That's the point.
And keep in mind that like I'm asking these questions knowing how great the Celtics are at this point, but I just kind of want to be like a little bit more nitpicky. If we're sitting here and we've been talking about the offseason of, oh, this is the move we needed, this is the difference, this is the change, then I feel like us as fans need to be able to look at that and assess, like, okay, like, is this different than last year? Is this on the road or a path to a championship? We don't have a Giannis, like we said. Do we feel like Tatum can go in and drop 50 in a playoff game if nobody else was showing up? And I still kind of feel like I don't want to say that I have like those doubts a little bit, because we are a team-oriented organization compared to a lot of other different brands of basketball. But I do feel like, and this is just the first half of the season, or not even the first half, but I do feel like we will get more out of Tatum this year. Yeah. And that's just kind of my opinion. And I feel like once we do that, like that's when you can see, and like call me crazy, that's when you could see the Celtics go on like a 18-game win streak. And that's obviously, hoping that everyone continues to stay healthy. We've had some games where Porzingis missed some time. We've had some big games from Al Horford. But to just kind of go into like my next question, like, are the Celtics a team that need to be buyers at the deadline for like that one more piece, or is it like, okay, I think everyone just trying to find their role with themselves. We need to accept the fact that like Hausier's gonna play minutes, Pritchard's gonna play minutes, and like this is the Boston Celtics.
I think they ought to make a move. I think that,
not a drastic one.
Yeah, nothing crazy. Like, I mean, I'm not talking about shaking up the starting lineup, but I think adding some bench depth is a good idea all the time. It's like, you guys play fantasy football. It's like there's always that guy who like never touches the waiver wire. It's like, you can't tell me there's no move that couldn't have made your team better.
Right.
Like, you got to do something.
Yeah.
So like, do I think they need to make a move? Absolutely. I would add some sort of bench depth. One of the guys that is continuously being talked about is Reggie Bullock, because his team's not going anywhere. He was a guy they were linked to over the summer, and then he just ended up signing with Houston. Yeah. He's a 3-and-D guy. He's 6'6". So this would be like another bench defender, perimeter defender kind of guy who could hit the three when he needs to. Another guy that I actually like the idea of is Isaiah Stewart from Detroit.
Yeah.
Per 36, he's a 13 and 11 guy. Would he get 36 minutes here? Never.
He's got some size to him too, right?
He's
like 6'7".
I think he might be 6'9".
Yeah,
but
right,
he's a good, interior player, can rebound the ball, has a nose for rebounds, and that's the kind of guy like on a night when Porzingis is out, and you don't want to play Horford for an extended amount of minutes. You get this guy in, and like Luke Cornett, he's been fine, but like is that a championship level player? Probably not. And I think at this point when you said like we're gonna count on Tatum for 50. He's got the most points of any player ever in a Game 7. Yeah. I think that's was forgotten last year because they didn't win the championship. That's a wild stat.
Yeah,
and then we're talking about 2 or 3 3-pointers falling, and we're talking about the greatest comeback in NBA history. So like I'm not a big like what if kind of guy, but like they were this close. Yeah. So like do I think that they got a little better in the offseason and hit their absolute prime? Yeah, absolutely. And I know last year I said I thought they would win the championship, but I still think it. There's nothing that they've shown that makes it. They're undefeated at home this year.
Love that. I feel like that's so important.
Yeah, 14-0 at home. We're 24 games into the Porzingis and Drew Holiday era of the Celtics, and they've lost 4 games.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
No,
so like
absolutely.
I'm super confident right now.
Yeah.
So do I think they can bolster the bench a little bit? Sure, but I don't want to change anything. Like as far as the starting lineup, they're playing exactly how I had hoped.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even like expect that to be the case. Financially or like just giving up assets like the way that would work out. Like we've been talking about in the off seasons. Like this is Tatum and Brown's like time to claim what's theirs. I do still feel like Mazzulla is doing like a really fair job at like being like a coach this year. Like I know if you ask Joe Sinatra, he wanted him canned last year.
I've never met a bigger anti
Joe Mazzulla
guy than him.
Yeah,
He's bad.
Absolutely, but I do feel like he's done a pretty solid job. And if I was to just toss out names out here just for the sake of adding a bench guy that I think could be some value and still fits great, I feel like there hasn't been a guy that's gotten as much out of this dude than Brad Stevens has, and Daniel Tice. I feel like he's like he came back to the Celtics twice already, so third time's the charm, right? But I feel like he still fits the mold that we did. I mean, we weren't asking him to give us like anything. We just wanted like a paint presence, and like he was competitive, but could still flex out to that 3 if we needed it. So that was always a name that like I've considered. I felt like that could bring a little bit more value back to the Celtics. I think the Celtics handle business versus the Lakers Christmas Day.
It's going to be a tough game for them. It's the last game of a 4-game West Coast road trip.
Yep.
The toughest game in that trip, I think, is the Sacramento game.
Yeah, I love Sacramento.
They're tough to play at home.
I love Sacramento.
They got a wild crowd, and it's it's a 10 p.m. game the night after a Warriors game, so it's not easy.
Same week of the Clippers too, right?
The Clippers. So this is one of the good things I think the Celtics have going for them is they play the Clippers in a noon West Coast time game on the Saturday.
Yeah.
Then they have Sunday off. Then they play the Lakers in a day game on Christmas Day on Monday. So I think unless they want to like hit the clubs and stuff in LA on Christmas Eve, which is probably not that big of a scene.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a while since I was like a let's go to a club guy. But like I feel like Christmas Eve ain't exactly like a party night out in LA.
No.
Maybe it is and I'm wrong, but I feel like the fact that they're playing a day game on Saturday, they're gonna be ready to go for that game on Christmas. You know, and it's a hype moment. They want to all these younger guys who grew up watching LeBron want to show out against LeBron. So I feel like they're gonna really be at the level they need to be for that game. And the question is, are the Lakers going to match it? I feel like the Celtics win that game in a statement game.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, again, I hate to say it, but feel about this guy as you want, but Christmas Day, LeBron, anything can happen. I think the Celtics win the game. Honestly, like you said, I think there's a lot of hype, and who doesn't want to play in the Staples Center on Christmas? That's like.
It's cool.
That's like NFL's equivalent to playing like a Super Bowl at Lombardi. Like, you know what I mean? It's the same type of thing.
As long as we're not bringing back the Christmas sleeved shirts.
Oh
that's
my
all
God,
that
dude, those were awful, dude. The short sleeve jerseys.
I don't even see those anywhere. Like I've never even seen one like pop up on
store,
eBay. Like nobody bought them ever.
That's probably why it was a one and done year. They were like, no one's buying them. We're getting.
I was thinking of it just literally before this episode because I was like, I want to wear something basketball. I was thinking about wearing something Christmas. I wasn't gonna toss on like a sleeveless jersey right now. I was like, do I even have one of those? And I was like, nah, I honestly don't because they were all so ass.
Yeah, they were.
Pretty rough times. I think that's what lost Adidas the NBA jersey.
Yeah, right. They were like, Nike, we gotta do this right. Come on,
happening here.
Absolutely. But 2 more games that I really want to talk about, on this Christmas slate. We have the 76ers versus the Heat. I feel like Embiid's right back in that MVP conversation as he should. all the noise about Philly that was there the offseason when you were considering, what's going to happen with Harden and all of that. I don't want to say that it disappeared, but when they win, I feel like there's no other place that's like, I don't want to say more sound, but like they love their team just as much as we love like the Celtics, you know?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So with this game, and I know like the Heat like are a team second half of the season that might, you know, get a little bit better as we go through, but interested to hear you guys' thoughts with the 76ers versus Heat and how they are at this point in the season.
Just off of pure dominance, I think the Sixers win because of Embiid on Christmas Day, but
yeah, I mean,
you know,
the Heat are always like one of those teams that you think that they're gone and they come back.
Yeah, it's like
crazy. So they're not great at home this year. This is at Heat, right?
This is at Heat.
Yeah, so they're 7-5 at home right now, which is, you know, it's fine.
Yeah.
But Philly's like right about the same. They're 8-4 on the road, so it's like, all right, maybe
This will be a good game.
Yeah, this should be a close one. I think Philly's still kind of trying to find themselves after the Harden departure, but they're playing well.
Yeah.
They're like hovering around 3rd, 4th, 5th, bouncing around there in the East. You know, they're still playing well. And like you said, they have like that kind of rabid fan base where, you know how Florida is. It's like there's always a way.
Yeah.
Like 10,000 retired guys,
Yeah.
their grandkids.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, you're talking about a Philly fan base who threw batteries and booed Santa Claus
Yeah.
on Christmas one year. So, you know, do I think they could show up at the Heat game and yell at people? Yeah, I bet.
Oh man, that's so funny. No, but I'm interested to see like the way that shakes out. Like I think the Bucks the second half of the season could get some traction in the East. Like I would assume that the Celtics, if they take care of business, will be able to be the 1 seed. You know what I mean? But I mean, talking about the 76ers and Heat, like those are the next teams that you would expect in that playoff conversation. When it comes to seeding, you know.
It's Celtics, Bucks, and then those two.
Those two,
know?
absolutely.
Just since we mentioned the Bucks, I want to just throw this question out there. Does not making / winning a finals on the Bucks do anything for Lillard's career? Like if he doesn't even make a finals, let alone win one, or if they make one and they lose, does that hurt his career? Does that help it?
I think his career stays the same.
You think it stays the same? Yeah.
Like I do
because I feel like he's one of those guys that's always talked about as like, you know, at least by generation, one of the best point guards of our generation that never had any help. So now he has the help on a team that already has won it recently, knows how to win.
No.
So I just want to throw that out there.
No disrespect to like Charles Barkley, but it's like that type of a scenario. Like, and like he's not. He might. I mean, and this is still, you know, to be determined. Dame's had a great career. It's not necessarily Charles Barkley-esque. Yeah, I mean, you can compare just because the lack of success as in a team style, but individually, Dame's done everything he could, stepping on a court. You know what I mean? And you could say the same thing about Charles. You know, it's just sometimes like you have like those great plays, regardless of like the sport, that like can and like Dan Marino. Yeah. Like there's no conversation about the greatest quarterback if he just won one. Yeah. And he never did. And I feel like depending on who you're arguing with, like they value add differently. You know what I mean? Like if you're somebody that can break down the sport with accolades and without, and then have that conversation, then it's great. But it's like he went there to win a championship, but I also feel like Dame could still be putting up 40 to 60 points once every week and a half or two if he was still with Portland, you know, but what is that? You know?
Yeah.
I think one of the things that Kevin Garnett came and said after he won with the Celtics and they had another finals appearance, he always said he loved Minnesota, but he wished he left like a couple years earlier because it's tough to have that kind of loyalty to an organization
and then
when they aren't bringing in the stuff you need.
Yeah.
And as soon as Garnett left, he won that first year because he was surrounded by like players and the Celtics built around them.
Yeah.
You know, and he said a lot. He was like, I loved Minnesota, but I wish I left like a year or two earlier. Maybe I'd have more championships. Maybe I'd have a better legacy, like you said.
Yeah.
You know, and I think Dame might have fallen into that trap where he stayed loyal to that team
a little too
long.
long.
And the team wasn't being loyal to him by adding the help that he needed. And I think they tried a few times over the years, but it just was never enough.
It's also a small market too, you know, so it's tough. Yeah, no one wants to go to
Portland. Feel like they kind of like tried to have their success like a little bit more with the draft, and I feel like that was Portland's scenario for like the past 25 years. Dame was just the only pick that like stood healthy and elevated to the level that they were expecting. Yep. If all those guys that came before Dame played their career and were able to establish that in Portland with extensions, Dame would have fit in there, and they would have been a
Well,
great team.
that's what I was just gonna say. I feel like Dame came in kind of after like the disappointing Portland Big Three with Odin and Brandon Roy and Aldridge, where like they never really, they never really panned out. And yeah, obviously Lillard would have came to that team and probably
Aldridge,
not have, but.
Yep.
I think, the organization as a whole was still kind of just like, oh, like what just happened? And then they got Dame, and it was like, all right, now we have the guy. Like, can we go build that again and make it successful? I think, like Pino said, that's what they tried with getting guys like even Nurkic, like drafting Nurkic. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Nurkic was a great draft pick coming out. He just didn't pan out like they thought he would. You know what I mean? So I definitely think they tried, but I think just like, I just think the timing of when he came to Portland was kind of just like you said, because that Big Three didn't pan out. There was never a winning culture there. Like they haven't won a ring since I don't know if they've ever.
It was the 70s. Bill Walton.
Yeah,
way back. But if you think about like one of the things that's tough to do with that in the draft is like when you have a guy like Dame, you're never going to be the bottom of the
right.
league.
Yeah, exactly.
You're gonna be like
even if you don't make the playoffs, you're going to be
15th pick. Like it's never going to be like that 1, 2, 3 where you get that surefire. You know, Tatum or LaMelo Ball.
And I think Dame was too passionate. Like I don't want to say ego, but like
pride.
Some teams will be like, all right, we're just gonna tank.
Yeah,
and Dame's like, no, like if I'm gonna carry us to an 8 seed if we get bounced first round, we get like I'm not finishing last. You know what I mean? And that's a great thing, but it is a tough scenario. You're right.
But I feel like that's just like kind of like the respect and like. I know it's still tough to compare these guys' careers, but you could say like the same about Dirk, right? Like Dirk was so content in Dallas, regardless of what was happening. They had a great team around him. I'm curious as to like, do you guys value like coaching and any of like that stuff with the Trailblazers? Because I feel like that's a part of it, And I don't think that. I mean, there were times where, like, you could say that they were the worst team in the NBA, but, like, were they ever really as bad as, like, Charlotte, dude? They would just change from the Hornets to the Bobcats back to Charlotte and still sucked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think the tough thing, too, is, like you said about his attitude, like, he wants to win games. In a Philly, a New York, L.A., that attracts guys to come play with you.
Yeah.
In Portland, they're like, I'm not going to Oregon. Like,
exactly.
What are we talking about? So, like, the location combined with that attitude is not great. He does that as a Philadelphia 76ers. He's a legend.
Yeah. No, I know.
I think the aggression and the way that the organization carries themselves has some play in it, though. Like, that the Celtics had a bad year of basketball. We didn't even have a bad year of basketball last year, and we were still one of the most aggressive teams, with the way that everything worked out in the offseason. And I think that Dame would have welcomed letting go of any capital that they had or any player that they had to help bring somebody in. Yeah, I do understand that you do have to, like, try and make it enticing for them to come. But, I mean, Dame had them as what? At a point in time as a top 5 seed with just him alone. Like, I really do think that if Portland said, hey, we're going to give up 4 first-round picks and go draft Zion, he might still be there.
Yeah.
You know? Like, that's my whole thought with it. And I hate to compare, Dame's career in a Bucks perspective because, one, it's not even established yet. Like, Dame could still play 5-6 years for the Bucks. And, like, yeah, his career at that point in time might digress a little bit. But it's like, even if he was to win a championship, if he wasn't playing at the level that he was in the Blazers and they either drafted somebody or brought somebody else in, like, are you even going to say that that's Dame's championship at that point in time? Like, obviously, like, in an all-time conversation, that helps give him some credibility.
I don't know. Nobody took it away from Paul Pierce when they brought in Garnett and Ray Allen to play with him here. So, I don't know. I don't know if you'd necessarily take it away from Dame. But then you're talking about, like you said, like, putting away 4 first-round picks for a guy like Zion. If that guy gets hurt
right, exactly.
or is a bust,
there goes your future.
These are $750 million to $1 billion businesses, each of these NBA franchises. You're risking your fortune and your livelihood on this possible guy like who's a 20-year-old kid who you said you didn't even trust him to make a decision with $500K.
Yeah,
and you're gonna be like, let's risk our $1 billion business on him. It's a tough call to make for these small market owners.
It is. I feel like you like when you play more conservative though, it's less likely to happen. Like look at football. Yeah. Like Philly, every single year is aggressive and they're one of the best teams. With Zion coming up in the conversation, Pino, this is just for you. Is Zion a bust?
I don't know if he's a bust yet. He's still super young. This time I mean, is he the guy we thought he was going to be? Probably not. But can he be like an all-star level NBA player still? Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
You know, so like a lot of guys, like there's a lot of first round picks or like top 5 or top 3 picks who turn out absolutely terrible. He's not terrible.
Yeah.
He's a good NBA player. I think if he was a free agent right now, at least half the league's going after him.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't say he's a bust, but you know, he's probably not the guy we thought he was.
Do you feel like that hype coming out of college has really impacted players' careers in the past decade?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, guys, you know, you got it's like a whole like the media atmosphere. Like they're crowning guys as like the next superstar before they even played a single NBA game.
Yeah.
It's tough on guys. But I mean, it's always been like even like number 1 overall picks has always been like kind of scratch tickets. You might get Anthony Bennett.
Yeah, you might get
LeBron
LeBron.
James.
Yeah.
You know, so like it's even look at the Cavs had multiple number 1 overall picks.
Yeah.
They got Kyrie, LeBron, and Anthony Bennett.
Yeah.
And Andrew Wiggins, right?
Yeah.
Before they traded him. So it's like, yeah, some of them are good.
Yeah.
Andrew Wiggins is middle of the road.
Yeah.
Anthony Bennett was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
So like you're batting 500 on
Yeah.
the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah.
So like after that, 2, 3, 4, it gets worse.
Yeah,
You know?
100%. The last game, Mavs versus Suns. How do you guys anticipate this one to go out? How do we feel about the Mavs and Suns at this point? Obviously, the Suns are nowhere near what their potential is this season with the way everything's been, but I feel like we're seeing a different KD. You know, I have to say, like, we're not seeing that easy money sniper sit at the three-point line and cash, and I don't think that was ever just his game by any means.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like he's playing a different brand of basketball for Phoenix. To say that they're a contender at the moment, obviously, when you look at their roster, like you can just say that, but it is tough. I know the West is wide open, but the Mavs, like, I feel like they're just like a team that I feel like is kind of stuck in the mud. In my opinion, like I just feel like not much is changing with them year in and year out. Obviously, Luka is extremely young, and Kyrie being there does add some star power. But do you have any more added respect from this Mavs team 2 years ago to now? Like, I feel like the only thing that's happened is the growth of Luka, and that's great because, I mean, I don't know how you guys feel. Like, I would say that freely, just without even getting into specifics, he's a top 15 player in the league.
Oh,
You know?
Yeah.
So, with that being said, how do we feel about these two teams in the West?
So I'm big on Phoenix. I always have been. Devin Booker's my favorite player in the league.
He's adjusted his style of play to cater to the new.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I feel like he was, and this is my perfect example of the Jalen Brunson conversation, right? And obviously Devin Booker is light years ahead of Jalen Brunson, but that's my point where up until really I want to say up until like mid-season last year, like even with Chris Paul, but definitely before getting Chris Paul, Booker was another one of those guys, shitty team, putting up 50 a night and doing nothing. Like, that's my point. But like you just said, he adjusted his style of play for the Phoenix Suns. That's something he can do. Same with KD. Like,
Brunson couldn't do that.
Like he said about Tatum, like KD's the same way. Like you said, he's not KD sniper shooting at the three. No, but he still can do that. Yeah. But he can also back you down and shoot a fadeaway. He can drive to the lane, Euro step, and finish with either hand. Like
Mid-range,
he's one of those guys that can score any different way. And I feel like Phoenix is, in aspect to, the best teams in the league, I think Phoenix has three of, I don't want to say the best scorers, but guys that can go out and score anyway. Like they have KD, they have Booker, and I know Booker size-wise isn't huge, but if you see him play, against other guards, like he backs other dudes down, like he does, like stuff like that. And then they have Bradley Beal, who predominantly is a shooter, but can also score multiple ways. So I feel like that's the one advantage Phoenix has on a lot of teams. Like obviously a team like the Warriors, they have Steph and Klay, but Klay at this point in his career, especially after the injury, is pretty much a one-trick pony. You know what I mean? I would say.
You feel that way?
Yeah, like I think the Celtics and maybe a couple other teams are the only other teams that are built like Phoenix, where they have multiple guys that can go out and score multiple ways. You know what I mean? But. And that's why I think they'll be a contender in the West.
We got to see them put it together. I agree with you. On
I definitely feel, especially,
team, I'm like, this is amazing.
Especially given the fact, like we said earlier, the three of them have only played a handful of games together. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. But I think just having that talent is always going to make you a contender and always going to make you good. And again, it's they have KD, a guy who knows how to win. They have Bradley Beal, a guy who's hungry to win. And then they have Devin Booker, who's kind of caught in the middle where he's been there, but he's never won it. But you can tell he wants to, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to get to the finals again and hopefully win it this time.
Yeah, I think that's a big factor.
Yeah.
The fact that he lost in the finals and
Yeah.
wants to like show because I mean a few years ago he scored like 70 against the Celtics.
Yeah.
And then like asked for the ball and it was a loss and it was like,
Yeah.
dude, who cares that you lost?
Yeah, like, yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like I think he's definitely like you said, he changed his attitude, he
Yeah.
changed his playing style a little bit. And once we see the three of them really,
Get
play
that time
together and see
together.
where they go and see how much they miss like an 8 and in the middle, like a big,
Yeah.
a big defensive like rim protecting presence. I think they could be, top team in the West, but we got to like see them do it.
Yeah.
And they haven't had the chance to yet. And the Mavs, they got, like you said, like a cloud hanging over them, especially like we just talked about it. Like these teams are worth $1 billion, and a guy who's a billionaire decided he wants to sell
Sell
the
it.
team. So like, what is he looking at practice where he's like, it's time to cash out?
Yeah.
Like right before they
He's
everyone
a
thought-
great businessman. He ain't gonna let his money tarnish. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that has like, and I wasn't gonna bring up fucking Shark Tank when we're talking
But-
No,
about basketball.
but like I mean, the guy
but-
made billions to buy an
Yeah.
NBA team. He's
And-
not like a bum.
And that's the crazy thing about the Mavericks, too, is like compared to the big teams in the NBA, like the Lakers and the Celtics, they're a little bit smaller market, but like revenue-wise, like they have the money to go out and pay guys, and like they just never have. Like, you know what I mean? Like even when they won it with Dirk, like Dirk was really their only
Yeah, Jason
all-star.
Kidd,
Yeah,
Jason
yeah,
Kidd.
like
Sean Marion.
yeah, but like even Kidd was like a little bit older at that
Crawford,
point. You know what I mean?
crossover.
Like yeah, but like
Did they have
They-
Jamal Crawford?
I don't think
they
that yet.
they
I
did,
think he
but
was
no, I
still
don't
with the
think he
Hawks.
not with the ring yet. But that's what I'm saying. Like they never really had like a team like a stacked team like a lot of these other West teams have. Like it's always been like one guy and then like a bunch of kind of role players. Obviously, he has Kyrie now, who's a superstar. But other than that, like the last 3 years, his second best player was literally like Jalen Brunson. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Or like
it's just hard.
Porzingis.
Yeah, like and Porzingis wasn't even really fully healthy with them. So it's hard to knock Luka for. I don't want to say the lack of success he has, but not being there, because it's the same with Dame. Like, obviously, he's had a little bit better talent around him than Dame did in Portland, but it's the same deal where, like, these other teams in your conference are going out and stacking up, and, like, whether that's what you believe in or not, like, that's what you have to do it, at some points.
I feel like the only thing, like, just to compare them to in a conversation that I feel like you kind of have to add to that is I feel like Luka got, a 2 or 3 year head start over Dame. Like, Luka came in, 19 years old and started playing, like, elite basketball.
Yeah.
Like, this dude is still probably just 22 years old, maybe 23.
Yeah.
And still has 7 years of prime. And that's considering, injury, like, if that was to happen in the future and
And
whatever else.
he had years of pro ball in Europe before
Yeah,
that, too. Like, he
absolutely.
was winning the European Champions Leagues and stuff before.
See, that's what's so big about the
he even came
European
here.
players. That really is. Like, they have such...
They stopped playing pro
I know.
at
I
16.
feel like
and
I feel like
that's why they always come in the NBA ready. Like,
you're
you know what I mean?
starting to see, though, the franchise change instead of, oh, my God, we need to give up everything for the first overall pick. Like, teams are valuing those second-round picks because I don't want to say that it's more likely that those hit, but they're giving up less. And I don't want to say that they're turning out more, but you're seeing different values of players that get drafted in the second round that can help teams out, whether it's at the superstar level with Jokic or even just like
like a role
filling
player.
a role, a bench spot, a 6-man, whatever it may be. You're seeing a wide variety of different things happen with that. And I think that's what's so fascinating about the NBA is like that draft is so different compared to like any other league in the world. And it's obviously because, their teams and organizations are smaller than most companies, you know what I mean? But the way that it works, with the lottery, I feel like it gives, everybody a really unique chance with all of that. But
And now people go after the European players for toughness.
yeah.
Which back, like, you talk to, like, your brothers and stuff,
Yeah.
they're like me. They think they still think everything's the 90s.
Yeah.
So they'll be like,
Yeah.
they'll be like, oh, the Euro guys are soft. But
Yeah.
like, it's the opposite.
Yeah, now it's
The Euro
now
guys
now
think
the
tough
now the
guys.
guys coming out of college in the U.S. are soft. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So
Yeah. But I also feel like that goes back to like officiating a little bit too. Like I feel like in Europe they might have a little bit more of like that freedom to play where like the college ball game, I don't want to say is called as much as the NBA is. The NBA I feel like is definitely still a more aggressive game than college ball, but I don't know, like I feel like it's different. And you guys can
I
feel
also
free to
feel like
disagree,
just
too.
the professional aspect of it too, because like obviously you're a top player in college, right? You're a Zion, you're something like that. You're going up against guys every night that are also really good, but they never like played a pro basketball. Like a lot of these guys aren't even getting drafted. Like unless you're the top one or two player on your team, like you're probably not getting drafted. Whereas like everyone in Europe, they either used to play pro ball and retired and went and played in Europe, or like it's just like it's like a different culture. Like it's pro basketball. Like the game, it's coached differently, it's played differently, it's taught differently. Like college is almost like I don't want to say like JV, but like that's almost like how guys like Jason Tatum, like think about it, it's like JV for the NBA, right? So like you're not learning everything that you're learning in Europe because that's stuff that they're going to teach you at the professional level in America. Whereas like Europe, these guys, like he said, are going pro 16, learning what Jason Tatum's learning year one of the NBA at year 16. So they're coming in the NBA at 19 years old with 3 years of professional experience, 3 years of professional coaching, and that's why there's so much of I feel like a gap between, like he said, the young players coming in the league now from Europe.
And if you're like the point guard for Duke,
you're
playing 2 games a year against like the off guard from UNC Greensboro.
Exactly.
Like, who cares?
Exactly.
Like nobody's ever gonna know that guy's name.
Yeah, like you're Luka. You're going up against a guy who played 10 years in the NBA. Whether he's as talented as a Jason Tatum in college, yes or no, but it's a different mindset. It's a different game. It's a different grind even. Like, you know what I mean? I'm sure the training in Europe is probably more advanced just at the professional level.
It's not even that. They're not just telling you, like a kid who's going to be an NBA talent. Like, you can figure it out when he's like 15.
Right, exactly.
You know, and from when the kid's 15 until he's 20 and he gets drafted, he's being told he's God's gift to basketball.
Exactly.
And, you know, and everyone should keep their hands off him. Don't touch him. He's the superstar. You know, and in Europe, it's the exact opposite. The kid's 16, he's going pro, and the coach is yelling at him, pick up the pace. What the hell are you doing? You know, and it's like they're being treated like a pro, like they have to be part of what we're contributing here, instead of like, you know, a guy who's the top player for Louisville. You know, he's been told he's God since he was 15.
Yeah. And I have like coaching high school basketball. This is like a topic that always comes up too, especially now because like we started like a freshman team this year, for example, right? And like we always have talks about like, you know, should we have freshmen playing varsity, like all this other stuff. And my whole thing is like, if you're good enough to do so, then you should do it. Like, yeah, obviously I know a freshman or even an 8th grader, because that's what we have on the freshman team. Obviously, you know, physically, mentally, the game advances from like 8th grade to senior year of high school. But again, like trial by fire, you know what I mean? Like sometimes you have to just be in it to understand it. And I feel like that's the problem with sports now, is everyone tries to make it like level competition, like where it's like, no, if a kid on freshman is better than a junior on JV, that freshman should be practiced with varsity. I don't care if the JV guy is bigger, just like physically bigger.
Get that varsity feel
because by the time that guy's a sophomore or a junior, he's going to be leading your team and he's going to have all that knowledge that
but you've been giving to that team for that amount
exactly.
of years.
Like we for example, like we have a senior this year on our team.
Right over there?
Yeah, we have a few seniors on our team, right, that don't get many minutes, but it's like, at what point are they even value to the team? Like, I'd rather have a bench spot for the freshman that can learn, because at this point the senior is like, you know what I mean? And that's like, to bring it back to like college, it's kind of like the same thing. Like, guys that are in college, like one and dones, those are kind of like your seniors. Like, there's not, like, you could still coach them, but at the end of the day, like, you only have 1 year with them. Whereas like the guys in Europe are getting that experience for 3-4 years and then coming out at the same age as these guys with all that experience.
True.
And that's my point. It's like, start them young, and obviously you don't want to kill a kid's confidence. Like, I'm not going to put a freshman in a game against Dorchester High so he can get the ball stripped from him 10 possessions in a row. But at least having him at, you know, practice and learning the game from a different lens is just like
beneficial.
Yeah, because like a kid on freshman, it like, and obviously, like, you've coached EBYBL, you know, like, when you coach kids, a lot of the stuff's remedial. And then there's always that one kid that's, like, dribbling between the legs, shooting threes, while, like, the other one, you're literally teaching how to take a right-handed layup. Yeah. And, like, those guys shouldn't be held back just for the fear of failing at the next level. Like, I'd rather have a freshman come in and go 0 for 10 and get the ball stolen from him 5 times and learn how to deal with that and cope with that and get stronger with the ball than have him play on a freshman game and have him play in a freshman game.
He's passionate.
And have him play a freshman game and score 40, because that's not doing anything for you. And that's what I'm saying. Like, Luka was going against grown men at the age of 16, 17. So by the time he was 19, he knew how to handle it, where other guys aren't coming out in that way.
That's how you know he coaches high school basketball, and we appreciate your rant. So make sure you relay that to your kids and your players if that applies. But you know, we're getting to the close of this here. Pino, I want to hear what the spread is on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day.
The spread for the Celts?
The
food.
food.
Oh,
the
me?
food.
Oh,
Wait,
yeah.
wait. Some bacalao.
I'm in betting mode. Christmas Eve, we're doing all fish. So I don't do the traditional 7 fish because nobody's trying to eat scungili.
Yeah. So what fishes do you do?
So I just go to whatever, fishmonger I'm going to and just pick out what's cool.
Yeah,
I'll try to
okay.
find like some cool stuff and then just make dishes out of that. We always have some sort of shrimp or pasta.
Yeah.
We always have, like some sort of like baked whole fish or like
You do
roasted
lobster?
grilled. Yeah, we do some sort of lobster. Like I usually don't do like whole lobsters because it just makes a mess of everybody trying to break them up. But I'll do like a lobster dish, like a lobster pie or something like that.
Nice.
And then Christmas Day, I mean, this is my first year where I'm like just straight up off for the
Yeah,
whole
let me
week.
say,
So I'll probably make something good. I usually kind of rely on like my mom.
Now, do you guys
figure out
do you
Christmas
guys
Day.
host either
We
one?
host Christmas Eve.
Okay.
We've always hosted Christmas Eve because even when I worked at the restaurant, we'd either be closed or like just open for brunch on Christmas Eve. So we always had everyone over Christmas Eve, and I do like a big bunch of seafood dishes. We do 7 fish because that's a tradition.
Yeah,
I don't do
it's not the traditional 7
I don't
fishes.
do the traditional 7 fishes because it's like it's very,
Tilapia and bacalao on your team.
it's like it's a whole other thing. But we do we do a
Anchovies.
bunch of different fish dishes to make it like kind of we're trying to keep up
Yeah,
with
Tradition,
but,
yeah.
But,
But
I
your
still
own
want everyone
tradition.
to leave and
Not-
eat something.
Not my family. Mike's already ordered the Spinelli's pizza.
Nice,
The nice tray of
Good for
pizza.
him.
That's
Good
his
for him.
Christmas tradition.
I
He
love it.
takes care of the pizza.
And Christmas Day, everyone's involved.
Yeah, so we usually go to my in-laws' house, and they make unbelievable food. My wife's from New Jersey. Her parents are like New Jersey Italian.
Oh,
it's
okay.
like-
There you
So
go.
how you feel about the whole Tommy Cutler thing right now?
It's hilarious.
Okay.
They probably love. Are they
So-
Giants fans or Jets fans?
No, they're randomly. My father-in-law's a Bills fan. I don't know why.
Okay.
He likes the Bills.
Matthew,
And,
don't get kept going. Please we'll be here for another 40 minutes.
but yeah, I think it was probably because like the run in the '90s,
Yeah,
they had
yeah,
everybody
yeah.
kind of liked them. But they'll always do like all kinds of Italian food and then like traditional Christmas stuff too. So we'll have like some kind of roast that's like something Christmas.
yeah.
But like the opener will be like, oh, here's like a giant tray of lasagna.
Yeah,
There you
yeah,
go.
yeah.
So it's always a good time.
There you go. All right, Kevin Pino, I'm going to give you guys the floor. Anything that you guys would like to add into this episode? Kev, you want to go first? Anything you'd like to say about fantasy football or the Bills?
Go Bills. I've been saying it. I'd said it since I think week 11 that the Bills were gonna win out the second half of the season.
After you were over them at week 7.
It comes and goes. But like I said, Miami's gonna lose to Baltimore. They're gonna lose to Dallas, and the AFC East is gonna come down to week 18. Buffalo at Miami, and Buffalo's gonna win the AFC East. I've been saying it. Miami, I'm not sold on them. And they definitely can't beat Baltimore. And I think the Cowboys are going to absolutely tear people alive the next 3 games just for how bad they've been playing the last couple games.
Okay.
So that's my prediction. Bills win the AFC East. You heard it here first.
All
There
right.
you go.
Pino?
One of the things I'm excited about is next summer, the Connecticut Sun of the WNBA announced they're playing one home game at the Garden. And I've been
You love
lobbying
the
for a
WNBA,
WNBA
yeah,
team
you
in the
love
Garden.
it.
Like, I don't understand how the Celtics, one of the most historic franchises
Don't
in
have a
sports,
WNBA team.
don't have a WNBA team. And I get they don't want to like pull from the Connecticut market, but like, maybe just make them like the New
I know,
England team. And
the
they can play
main-
some of the
yeah,
games.
yeah,
and-
yeah.
What I know what I wonder what entailed them to like why was it Connecticut and not Boston? Did Boston not
Well,
want
Maybe
it?
UConn?
UConn women's
Yeah.
hoops. They got
True,
a huge
yeah, I
following
guess,
in
yeah,
Connecticut
yeah, they
already.
already
And
had-
the Mohegan Sun, the tribe bought the team from Orlando. They were the Orlando team.
Oh, okay,
They bought
gotcha,
the team
gotcha.
and moved them to Connecticut,
okay.
and they've been there since. And they're like always a very competitive team. They were in the
Yeah, I was
finals
gonna
like
say
2 years
Connecticut's
ago.
good, yeah.
But they're playing one home game next summer against the LA Sparks. I'm definitely going.
Wow.
I already called my
Yeah,
season
yeah,
ticket rep for
yeah.
the Celtics. I'm like, does this count? Like, do I get this
Yeah.
one already?
I love that.
So I'm definitely gonna go, and I'm hoping that they have a good turnout and like figure out a way to get a WNBA team or like even like some home games or something.
Mm-hmm.
Do like in season tournament and have the finals be there.
Yeah.
So something cool to get like some more WNBA in this town.
Awesome. Well, we love that, and
Yeah.
we appreciate you guys leaving practice and school early
Nice.
to come over here, hop on the podcast. Like I said, Christmas week, it's only right that we're talking ball on the podcast. But guys, thank you so much for all your help with the toy drive this Thanksgiving with the cans and the toys in December. Made our biggest impact yet. Still tallying that up, so we'll get that all to you guys real soon. We got a bunch of new merch that's literally just came in. I didn't finish packing it yet. So head over to sandbox.net. You guys can get yours. New hoodies. We got snapbacks. Snapbacks are officially back. We got beanies, long sleeves, and a new born and raised in Eastie style. So you guys that have any questions with that, please feel free to reach out. For anybody that is in this just for solely a basketball purpose, Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. We hope you guys enjoy. We hope you guys win your bets. But we're also hoping for all you guys that are with us for fantasy football and basketball. Best of luck in your fantasy performances this week. I eliminated Lou in one Yahoo league. Going
Now
against,
you're gonna play him in
I'm
next
gonna
week,
play him in
yeah.
Sandbox after my bye week. So Lou, I'm really sorry. I wish I was playing you in the ship, but that is not likely going to be the case, and I will be rooting for your demise this week. But with that all being said, you guys know the deal. You can check this episode out on YouTube. Make sure you go and leave us a 5-star review. You guys know the deal. Peace, love, 5 stars, nothing less.